Law Enforcement Museum recently played host to the Awakening African Diaspora and AMP Youth Leaders Conference, a pivotal event that aimed to strengthen the ties between the United States and Africa. Under the overarching theme of bridging the gap and cultivating lasting collaborations, this dynamic and transformative conference brought together young adults, entrepreneurs, and leaders from both continents. The Awakening African Diaspora and AMP Youth Leaders Conference was a two-day extravaganza of innovation, collaboration, and exploration. Its core objective was to promote a strong and mutually beneficial relationship between the United States and Africa. The event provided a platform for participants to share ideas and co-create initiatives that would contribute to a brighter future for both continents. The event featured an impressive lineup of speakers, including business magnates, thought leaders, and scholars, all of whom were deeply committed to bridging the gap between the African diaspora and the United States. Their unique insights and experiences shed light on how collaboration and investment can lead to transformative change. Afrique Today had the privilege of engaging with some of the conference's speakers, each of whom brought a unique perspective on the theme of bridging the gap and cultivating lasting collaborations.
Hi, my name is Commissioner O. Felix Obi. I always add the O because my son is also Felix Obi, but that's an aside. I serve on the President's Trade Advisory Committee on Africa. I also chair the Maryland Governor's Trade and Development Task Force with Africa. I'm also a professor of economic and trade and political economy. So one of the key points is that I really do believe that Africa's future is bright, and Africa's future is us. And in the partnership between Africans in diaspora, the partnership between the national governments in Africa as represented by the diplomatic corps here present today, is a partnership that leads Africa to where it needs to be. So we have a lot of Africans who have immigrated and are now in the diaspora. Many of us have also done well for themselves. And this growing partnership where the national governments in Africa can leverage the skills and technical ability and, quite frankly, relationship of diasporans to the betterment of the continent is really the big takeaway. And we can go into details of some of the processes, how that can be achieved. But the big takeaway is that partnership that is emerging.
Hi, I am Joanna Lam. I am a trained lawyer and a partner at Adomi Advisory Group. We are an international law firm based in Washington, D.C. That litigates, lobbies, and also advises. And in particular, we help support African governments in making sure that their interests are properly represented before the U.S. Congress, the White House, the State Department, and the various financial institutions. And we also support investors in securing debt financing for projects in emerging markets, and we provide public relations services. And lastly, I serve as an adjunct professor at Howard University. But as it relates to AGOA, as I stated during my discussion, AGOA is up for renewal in 2025. The last time AGOA was renewed, it was renewed for 10 years. There are conversations about renewing AGOA this time for 25 years versus 10 years. But AGOA essentially is a trade agreement that creates an opportunity for trade between the United States and African countries. There are a number of beneficiaries across the continent, and the number one beneficiary of this trade agreement is South Africa, and then you have Nigeria, and then you have Kenya. While it is underutilized, I think now is the opportunity for African governments to ensure that they influence the process to make sure the language that goes into the trade agreement, it is consistent with the needs of their citizens. It is consistent with the needs of investors. It is consistent with the needs of the growing economy, because the reality is that the AGOA that existed 10 years ago has evolved, right? The economies have evolved. There has been significant changes in the agriculture sector, in the textile sector, sectors, and so on. So we need to ensure that African governments influence that process to ensure that it is not Washington that is telling African governments and beneficiary nations on what a goal is going to look like, what the language is going to look like, right? So there are opportunities to negotiate even some of the human rights language conditions, right? Some of the language that stipulates how a beneficiary country can maintain its status, right? Now is the opportunity, and our firm stands ready and committed to support African governments in ensuring that their national interests are protected as we renew this critical piece of trade legislation, and also to ensure that we provide guidance on how to further utilize this trade agreement.
Sure. So I'm a social entrepreneur focused on what I call the African dream. I've been focusing on the African dream for about 17 years now. You know, the idea of the African dream is one where Africans should be able to use their creativity, intelligence, their wit, you know, everything about who they are to be able to find solutions to their problems. The African dream is like the American dream. We believe Africans dream as well. And so my life has just been focused on how do we create that platform to enable the actualization of the African dream. So I've been working, my career has been, geared in that direction, which includes, the kind of programs I take, the kind of education I have, the kind of people I work with, the kind of organizations I work with. I've been geared towards that. So I've been building those social engineered solutions to figure out, some of the wicked problems in Africa that we are suffering. For example, our foundation has looked at how do we look at the structural determinants of poverty. One of the things we found, for example, in our research was women has been very marginalized in Africa. If you empower a woman, you empower a generation. And so we have started training those women in, for example, in Cameroon, the IDPs, we focused on 300 women, looking at empowering them with the skills that they need. And not just that, not just skills and trainings, but also money. Put money in their pockets as well so that they can take care of themselves, educate their kids. And we believe that's one way, basically, we can start the road to recovery as a continent. And then after the women, we focused on kids, which is why we are building robotic solutions, AI, machine learning for the kids, because these kids in 10 or 15 years, they will be the leaders, 10, 15, 20 years. They will be the leaders basically driving the continent forward. So our foundation has been focused on that journey of empowering the next generation, in a way that we can address wicked problems like poverty, inequality. Let me give you an example. We are building a solution called LawGecko. This is an application that is actually trying to solve the problem of, intimate partner violence, which is very prevalent in Africa. Men beat their wives to death. Nobody says anything. What if we can have solutions where we can catch that, nip that in the bud, identify those problems, and then figure out if they can get counseling, support. Women can get support, or we can even involve the police as an intervention mechanism before it leads to death. So we are building a software solution to solve that problem, and it's an open source solution. 300 developers working together, volunteering to solve this problem.
Hi, thank you so much, Tantetta. So I'm Lana Emoa. I'm a proud Cameroonian. I am as you already stated, the executive director of the USA branch at Hallmark International Youth Club, which focuses on youth empowerment, empowering young people in the global south and connecting them to different resources and trying, ensure that, there's empower them economically, and also trying to build your capacity and educating them on sustainable development goals and trying to engage them in achieving the 2030 agenda. And so and also I'm a advocate at the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, and I'm also a gender specialist and a human rights advocate. I think initial goal of organizing this event. So this all started off from the event, the Awakening African Expo, Business Expo that Awaken Africa Hub organized in Dallas back in July, which brought like different officials from Africa, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and think tanks, leaders and youth as well. So we were trying to replicate this model here in Washington, D.C. So it was just like, yeah, and I'm based here in D.C. So it was like, yeah, why not? Let's try to like, hit, like test the water and see how it goes, for our bigger plan, because we're really trying to go for something bigger next year, where we can actually engage, more world leaders and leaders of different top industries here, industries here in the United States, as well as global leaders as well. So it was just kind of like us just testing the water and trying to like, bring key stakeholders at the table to hold discussions on business and trade, especially this week, as this is the week AGOA is happening this week in South Africa. So we wanted to pretty much like seeing how we can bring actors from Africa, some of the countries in Africa, connect with the embassies here, try to bring representatives and the diaspora entrepreneurs and investors here, and try to have conversations on how we can forge U.S. and U.S. relations and U.S. and Africa relations and strengthen those relationships, and bring some of our best experts on those issues, and that will be able to share best practices, recommendations, and tell us more about the work that they do around those topics. So and those trade agreements. So that was the goal. So I'm glad that it went out very well, and we're actually looking forward to next year. We actually put this together in a span of 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, so I think for today's turnout, I think it was really good. And we're just hoping that with the outcomes of this, we're able to forge stronger relationships and towards our event for next year.
Background has been always on entrepreneurship.
The Awakening African Diaspora and AMP Youth Leaders Conference lived up to its promise of being a dynamic and transformative event. By bringing together a diverse group of leaders, entrepreneurs, and young adults from both the United States and Africa, the conference provided a fertile ground for ideas and initiatives aimed at cultivating lasting collaborations. The insights shared by the esteemed speakers underscored the importance of economic, innovative, diplomatic, and educational approaches in building bridges between these two continents. As the conference concluded, the momentum for closer ties and mutual growth between the United States and Africa was palpable, making it clear that such events play a crucial role in shaping the future of international relations and partnerships.
I hope you all have a wonderful evening or morning wherever you are. And remember, it takes a tribe. It takes a tribe. You and I have the duty to bring our nations together and also contribute to the rising up of our nations. With that being said, it's your favorite MC on the mic, Tatenda Jimbo. See you soon.